Did you know that over half the world lives in countries where over half the households have motorcycles? Motorcycles are increasingly rivaling and in many cases dominating cars as the personal vehicle of choice, especially in the global south. Today we're going to explore what are the pros and cons of this, what does it mean for the future of shared transport, and what, if anything, should we be doing about it? Welcome to Transit World, videos on all things transportation, with a focus on the developing world. Motorcycles really have taken off in the last 20 years. Motorcycles, or motorbikes, scooters, powered two-wheelers, whatever you want to call them, we're going to call them motorcycles, just to keep things simple. But we're really just talking about any two-wheeled vehicle that runs on a motor. There's currently over 700 million motorcycles worldwide, and this number is fast approaching the total for cars. If you live in one of these 16 countries, you are more likely to have a motorcycle in your household than not. You're also more likely than not to live in one of these countries, since these 16 represent a combined 4.3 billion people, over half of the world's population. It hasn't always been like this. Motorcycles have claimed this dominance in the last 20 years, more than doubling in these 16 countries since 2005. And the reason is quite simple. They're increasingly affordable. People have more purchasing power, and the prices are coming down. The average price for a new motorcycle in these countries has decreased from around 150% of average wages in 2005 down to just 30%. So is this good? Well, these motorcycles do have a lower space requirement for roads and parking than you get with conventional vehicles, and they can be environmentally friendly. Two-stroke engines are pretty bad for local contaminants, but they do use a lot less fuel per mile, and motorcycles are electrifying faster than most other modes. And for the average user, obviously they like motorcycles, otherwise they wouldn't be buying them. Motorcycles offer a lot of the same benefits you get with a car. They're point-to-point, they're on demand, you can go for about the same speed and distance, and motorcycles are also really good on bad roads. It's easier to navigate potholes, rough patches, and roads that have no or only a little bit of pavement. And you get all of this for just a fraction of the price of a car. The annualized cost of ownership depends on the country and your driving needs and a bunch of stuff, but you're often looking at around 10 times less, which translates to several $1,000s less per year. Savings that in many cases are roughly equal to the average annual wages in these countries. In fact, motorcycles only come at a marginal cost premium over using public transit. That's not great. We'll come back to that later. So what's wrong with motorcycles? Well, first and foremost, they are kind of dangerous. Globally, you have about a 1 in a 200,000 chance of death for any given ride on a motorcycle. And it is a little hard to improve safety through design, since you don't got a lot that you're working with. In India, about 75,000 people a year die in motorcycle accidents, representing almost half of all of the total roadside fatalities. Motorcycle safety stats are notoriously difficult to pin down, but some research does start to imply that even though there are a lot of extra crashes involving motorcycles, the amount of deaths actually might be lower in some parts of the global south because of the lower average speeds on those roadways. Of course, another issue with motorcycles is that as the prices start to come down, they're increasingly getting closer and closer to the price of shared transport. It seems almost inevitable that at some point, the price of taking a motorcycle is going to be the same as the price of transit. And so the question is, what happens when we hit that point? Something terrible could happen. I don't know, maybe. Nobody really knows what to make of this. But back in 2015, I did work on a study of the Janmarg BRT system in Ahmedabad, India. And the system had just doubled its mileage and station count and was actually experiencing a small downtick in ridership. So we were there investigating why that happened. And the answer was complicated. There was a lot of different contributing factors, but the number one factor was that people had switched over to using motorcycles. Now, this is an extreme example of ridership loss that is specific to a particular system and city, but it does show a troubling broader trend. People switch to motorcycles because it's economically the best option for them, not for society. So this could lead increasingly to a tragedy of the commons situation in urban transport in the global south. So what should we do? Well, the first thing is we do need to make sure motorcycles are safe. We do need to enforce registration, licensing, helmet use, and we need to set and enforce occupancy rules. I understand the need for some people to use motorcycles to move their families, but every city should do some studies to best balance the local needs with what is truly safe. We also should set clear rules on where motorcycles are able to drive. Motorcycles shouldn't get in the way of shared and active transport. They probably need to stay out of the bus and the bike lanes. Motorcycle access might need to be restricted on certain freeways as well, especially if they're high speeds and contain a lot of heavy and mixed traffic. And cities should help to encourage electrification of the motorcycles that are on the road. Electric motorcycles, for over a decade now, have been increasingly becoming an economically viable product. Cities need to understand that and have measures in place to embrace and promote them. But at the end of the day, we truly do need to just live with these motorcycles. They're not going anywhere. People like that they're point-to-point, that they have cheap price points, and they're willing to deal with some of the safety risks. Even the most authoritarian state of which there are several in Asia, cannot truly ban motorcycles without crippling transport in their cities. So the best we can do, and what I think we really should do anyway, is to accommodate motorcycles so that they are used to help improve efficiency and safety of transport, not detract from it. That's all I've got for today. Remember to please like and subscribe if you like this content. See you next time.